I used to think betrayal was something you could sense, that it came with a chill in the air, a long silence, a strange look across the room. But betrayal, I learned, wears a smile. It comes dressed in family, in whispered reassurances, in gentle lies. For most of my life I believed I had everything. A husband who seemed devoted, a sister who was my best friend, and a small but growing business I built from scratch. My name is Clara Whitmore, and I wasn't born into wealth or privilege. Everything I had I earned, fought for, sacrificed for. And they took it from me. My husband, his mistress, and my own sister. Let me start from the beginning. Jake and I met when we were both young and hungry. He was charismatic, sharp, and endlessly persuasive, the kind of man who could make you feel like you were the only person in the room. I was more reserved, analytical, the planner to his dreamer. We started with nothing but a small loan and a garage. Over the years, we built Whitmore Home Solutions, a design and build firm that grew from tiny renovation jobs into full-scale luxury projects. It was more than a business, it was our life. We worked late nights, skipped vacations, reinvested every penny. At some point, I suggested we bring in someone to help manage the growing chaos. Admin, scheduling, client retention. That's how my sister Rachel got involved. She had just gotten out of a messy divorce and needed a fresh start. I vouched for her, trusted her, welcomed her into the business like it was our blood right. It took me a while to realize that while I was running the operations and closing deals, Rachel was whispering in corners and Jake was letting her. It started with little things. A forgotten invoice here, a missed meeting there. Jake would act irritated with me in front of the team, things he never used to do. Rachel, meanwhile, was everywhere, answering his calls, attending private lunches for business. I asked once if anything was going on. They both laughed. Clara, not everything's a conspiracy, Rachel said, her tone drenched in pity. You work too hard. You need to relax. Jake kissed my forehead that night and told me I was overthinking. We're a team, babe. Don't go inventing drama. So I buried the unease. I had work to do. We were expanding into a second location. I was dealing with permits, architects, supply chain issues. I didn't have time for paranoia. Then one day, I walked into the office early and found them laughing in Jake's private office. Not just laughing, touching. Her hand grazed his thigh as they flipped through vendor files. They froze when they saw me. And then, almost immediately, Rachel stood and smiled like nothing had happened. Morning, she said. Want coffee? I didn't answer. I turned around, got in my car, and sat in the parking lot for an hour, shaking. That night, I confronted Jake. He didn't deny it. He didn't admit it either. He just stared at me with that hollow look I used to see in clients who refused to pay what they owed. You're losing it, he said. That phrase would become a weapon over the next few months. Whenever I questioned numbers that didn't add up, I was paranoid. When I noticed invoices being rerouted or vendors getting paid late, I was micromanaging. When I asked Rachel to step back from client meetings, Jake accused me of being jealous. It didn't take long before I was removed from decision-making altogether. They did it slowly, one paper at a time. Jake convinced me to take a sabbatical for my mental health. Rachel handled transition. I signed things I barely read, trusting Jake to protect what we built. 3 months later, I was locked out of every account. Email, banking, HR, contracts. Called my lawyer. He looked at the documents and gave me a grim look. Clara, technically you relinquished control. By then, it wasn't just about the business. Jake filed for divorce 2 weeks after I tried to reclaim access to the company's books. The filing claimed emotional instability, erratic behavior, and, most painful of all, alleged I'd mismanaged company funds. I was stunned. Rachel submitted a notarized statement in support of Jake's claims. She needs help, she wrote. Clara has always had a fragile state of mind. I'm worried about her well-being. That's when I realized they weren't just removing me from the business. They were trying to erase me, discredit me, leave me with nothing. They even subpoenaed my therapist. My own therapist. The first court hearing was humiliating. Jake's lawyer presented spreadsheets showing irregularities that had clearly been fabricated or manipulated. They painted me as paranoid, erratic, and emotionally unfit to hold an executive role or manage her own finances. I couldn't believe how easily they twisted everything. My lawyer, Patrick Monroe, a soft-spoken but sharp litigation specialist, told me to remain calm. "This isn't about shouting louder," he said. "It's about playing the long game. And trust me, we're just getting started." I didn't understand what he meant then, until he opened that manila envelope. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Patrick and I went back through every document I had ever signed with Jake. Every contract, every line of email, every text. For weeks we worked like investigators. And one afternoon he called me to his office. When I walked in, he was holding a thin, sealed envelope with an old return address. My father's law firm. Froze. My father had passed away 3 years earlier. I reached out to his former partners. They still had access to archived files. "This was in your father's private vault, not in any of the standard records," Patrick said. "What is it?" Yes. He tapped the envelope. "The thing that changes everything." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He slid it across the table. "Your father was a silent partner in Whitmore Home Solutions. And he left you his shares in a transfer document Jake never bothered to revoke, or possibly never knew about." I couldn't breathe. "He notarized it, witnessed it, holds weight, and it overrides everything Jake filed." The final court date was approaching. Jake's side was confident. His mistress, Rachel, was scheduled to testify. Their lawyer had prepared a closing argument based on mental instability, mismanagement, and a petition to seize not just the business but joint assets. I was supposed to walk away with nothing. No equity, no compensation, just debt and shame. They didn't know what was inside the envelope Patrick carried into court. And I didn't know that Rachel was about to unravel on the stand, exposing more than she meant to. Courtrooms have a strange scent. Part fear, part disinfectant, part stale coffee. I sat in the front row, my palms flat against the oak table, trying to hide the tremble in my fingers. Jake sat across from me, smirking. Rachel was behind him, perfectly composed, like she belonged there. I tried to remember a time she looked at me with warmth. Couldn't. The judge entered. The clerk called the case. This was it, the final hearing. They were about to bury me. Or so they thought. Jake's team started strong. Their attorney was polished, theatrical, and unforgiving. "She was mentally unstable," the man said with mock sympathy. "She'd cry in meetings, disappear for hours, and send clients bizarre messages late at night. They pulled out email printouts I'd never seen. Fabricated. I could tell by the formatting. But the court didn't know that yet. Then came Rachel. She walked up in heels that echoed louder than her words. Her lips trembled with fake compassion as she said, "I love my sister. I always have. But I can't lie under oath. Clara, she hasn't been well for years." I gritted my teeth. "She would scream over nothing," Rachel continued. "She accused me of things I never did. I tried to help, but eventually, she started locking herself in the office for days. Jake and I had to do something. That was her narrative. That she helped. That she was the rational one, the victim even." Patrick leaned in and whispered, "Let her keep talking." I didn't understand until Rachel slipped. She got comfortable. Too confident. "She once threw a file cabinet at me," she said. "In the office. Ask anyone. It happened after she found out about me and Jake." The courtroom went still. Even the stenographer looked up. Jake's lawyer blinked. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. Are you saying you and Mr. Whitmore were involved while he was married?" Rachel froze. I mean after the separation." She thought. "You said after she found out. That implies it had begun before separation," the judge said, voice sharpened. Jake's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we can clarify." "No need," the judge said. She just admitted to being in a romantic relationship with the respondent's husband while they were married. This goes directly to credibility and motive. Rachel's face drained of color. Jake hissed something under his breath. Patrick smiled for the first time that day. When it was our turn, Patrick stood slowly, confidently. No theatrics, no performance, just calm precision. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter a document into evidence," he said, holding up the manila envelope. "This document has been verified by the original law firm of Clara Whitmore's late father, Gregory L. Matheson. It contains a legally binding agreement naming Ms. Whitmore as the sole inheritor of his interest in Whitmore Home Solutions, shares that were never publicly declared and therefore not subject to division under marital asset laws." There was a pause. Jake's attorney opened his mouth to object, but the judge waved him off. "Let me see it." Patrick handed it over. It was brief. 2 notarized pages and 1 handwritten note on the firm's letterhead. "To my daughter Clara, you built something from nothing. I want you to always have control of what you created. These shares are yours now and forever. Dad." The courtroom was silent. Jake turned red. Rachel turned gray. Jake stood up mid-hearing. "This is ridiculous." He was senile. "That's not valid." The judge didn't even flinch. "Mr. Whitmore, sit down." "Counsel, any evidence to support that claim?" Jake's lawyer muttered. "No, Your Honor." The judge looked over the document again, then at me. "Ms. Whitmore, do you have a response to the claims made earlier today regarding your mental health and business conduct?" I nodded and stood. "My response is simple. I was never unstable. I was isolated, manipulated, and gaslit by 2 people I trusted more than anyone, my husband and my sister. They tried to rewrite history, but the paper never lies. My father believed in me, and unlike them, he left a legacy I could hold in my hands." I sat down. The judge's eyes lingered on me. Then he spoke. "In light of this new evidence, the court acknowledges Ms. Whitmore as majority shareholder of Whitmore Home Solutions. All previous claims of mismanagement are dismissed as moot, given the petitioners had no standing to remove her. Regarding marital assets, the business shall remain in the sole ownership of Ms. Whitmore." Rachel gasped. Jake's mouth opened, but no words came. The judge continued. "As for the testimony given today, I will be referring the matter of perjury and false accusations to the district attorney for review." Blinked. Rachel shook her head. Wait, what?" The judge looked at her. "Ms. Matheson, you lied under oath and admitted to conduct that undermines your credibility as a witness. That has consequences." She burst into tears. Jake stood again and stormed out before the gavel even hit the bench. I just sat there barely breathing. It was over. And yet it wasn't. Outside the courtroom, Rachel approached me. Her mascara had run, and her voice was shaking. "Clara, I didn't mean for it to go this far." I stared at her. "You didn't mean to fall into my husband's arms, to help him strip away everything I built, to sit in court and lie about my mental state." She sniffled. "He said you'd be fine, that you'd get something, that it was just business." I stopped her. "No, Rachel. You don't get to use the just business excuse. Not when you signed papers to destroy me. Not when you sold out your own blood." She swallowed hard. "You'll always be the stronger one, Clara." "No," I said. "I'm just the one who didn't need to lie to win." I walked away without looking back. Rebuilding wasn't easy. Some of the staff had left. Some clients were confused. But slowly, brick by brick, I took back what was mine. I changed the company name to Matheson and Whitmore Designs, honoring both the legacy of the man who protected me and the version of myself I had nearly forgotten. And I started something new, a program for women who'd been removed from their own companies by spouses, siblings, or so-called friends. A place to teach them how to get it all back. Because the truth is, betrayal doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. 6 months after the verdict, I stood inside the lobby of the newly reopened Matheson and Whitmore Designs headquarters. My headquarters. The floors gleamed, the walls held framed photos of our projects, and the conference room bore a single symbolic touch. The original copy of my father's letter, now preserved behind glass. It wasn't just a decoration. It was a promise. I had rebuilt the company on my own terms. Every decision I made had weight. Not because I wanted revenge anymore, but because I wanted legacy. But as always, the past wasn't finished with me yet. One rainy afternoon, I received an unmarked envelope in the mail. At first, I thought it was promotional material or a legal leftover. But the handwriting stopped me cold. It was my father's. Inside was a second letter. One I had never seen. Clara, if you're reading this, it means something went wrong. I knew Jake didn't respect you, not really. I saw how he watched Rachel even back then. I didn't want to intervene unless I had to. You're strong, but even strong women get blindsided. I left 2 envelopes. One for the courts. And this one for you. Don't let them convince you you're crazy. Don't let them make you small. You've always been bigger than they could handle. Ed. I sat on the edge of my desk and cried harder than I had in months. Not from sadness. From recognition. From finally being seen. The fall of Jake and Rachel. The fallout from the trial didn't stop at a lost company. The DA did review the perjury claims, and what they found unraveled everything. Jake had forged internal documents and colluded with Rachel to misrepresent business operations. There were multiple counts of fraud, and it wasn't long before the IRS joined in. The irony: the shell companies they'd used to move money were registered in Rachel's name. He tried to pin it on Jake. He claimed she was the mastermind. Neither got away clean. Jake accepted a plea deal: 3 years probation, asset seizure, and public disgrace. Rachel was sentenced to 6 months in county jail for perjury and financial misconduct. She served 5. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to. Poetic justice doesn't always come with handcuffs. Sometimes it comes when people realize the world finally sees them for who they are. One afternoon, a young woman walked into my office. She was nervous, clutching a resume, eyes darting across the room. "Hi," she said. I was referred here by the Women's Business Trust. They said you might help." Her name was Tasha. Her ex had stolen her client base, erased her from their shared online brand, and filed to block her from any profits. It was familiar. Too familiar. I leaned forward and said, "I can. But I won't just help you fight him. I'll help you build something they can't tear down." That's when I knew. This was bigger than Jake, Rachel, or even the courtroom. It was about rewriting the story. For women like me and women like Tasha. Months passed. The company grew. Media outlets picked up the story of my comeback, and I was invited to speak at a women's business summit in Chicago. After the panel, a woman approached me. Elegant, older, reserved. "You don't know me," she said. "But I knew your father. I was his assistant for 12 years. She handed me a USB drive. "I think he meant for you to have this, but I didn't know where to send it until I saw you in that article. I wasn't sure you'd want anything to do with the past." Back at my hotel, I opened it. Inside were scanned contracts, journal entries, and audio recordings. Dozens. Documenting every early conversation between my father and Jake. It showed Jake had known about my father's ownership all along. He'd signed off on it years ago in exchange for silent backing from my father, which meant Jake's entire defense in court, that he had no knowledge of my father's shareholding, was not just untrue. It was perjury. I turned it all over to my attorney. Jake was indicted again. A final blow. Rachel moved to another city. She tried to start a new business, but people don't forget viral scandals. Her name was toxic in professional circles. Jake filed for bankruptcy. His new partner left him. He attempted to sue me for defamation. It was thrown out immediately. They once stood on a stage of lies and believed they'd won. But truth has a strange way of showing up, even years later, with receipts. The last time I saw the courtroom, it wasn't as a defendant. It was as a mentor. I was there to support another woman, standing in the same spot I once had. She looked at me with the same fear I'd once felt. I whispered, "Don't worry. Let them laugh. We brought the envelope." She nodded. Because in the end, the truth doesn't need applause. Just the right moment to be opened. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story,